The Chicago Bulls have one of the most disgusting fourth quarter breakdowns that you're probably ever going to see and on route to lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're going to talk about all and more, but first, got to play this intro.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode, by the way, is brought to you guys by PrizePicks. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. You know who did not run their game today? The Chicago Bulls. Well, depending on how you look at it, maybe they ran the exact game that's needed. The Chicago Bulls are now on a 4-game losing streak, 9 games into the season. And in the way that they did and lost this game was a spectacular calamity. I don't even know what to call it. It was downright disgusting and ugly to see the Chicago Bulls lose this game in the manner in which they did. The Bulls started off this game pretty hot, actually, having a 9-point lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves at halftime in this game. And then in the third quarter, things start going left. And then in the fourth quarter of this game, not only did the Minnesota Timberwolves absolutely drop a bomb on the Chicago Bulls, they slapped them in the face and punched their mom in the stomach all at the same time while walking out of the arena with their heads held high. 45 points did the Chicago Bulls give up in the fourth quarter of this game, where they scored 24 points. They got outscored by 21 points in just the fourth quarter of this basketball game. And the Bulls, a team that was shooting the ball extremely efficiently in the first half of this game, completely and utterly fell apart. When you look at the first to second half difference in shooting for the Chicago Bulls, they were shooting the ball 24 of 40 for 60% from the field in the first half of this game. They also went 10 of 17 from three-point range for 58% from three. The Bulls also hit 87% of their free throws. They were shooting the ball. They had a true shooting percentage of 76% in the first half of this game. Great. The confidence was high, all that. And then you look at the second half of this game. The Bulls shot 26% from three. And while it's not horrible, they shot 47% from the field overall. And this team that had 20 assists on 24 made baskets in the first half of this game, in the second half had 10 assists on 23 made baskets. This team completely and utterly fell apart. And despite 15 second half points from Kobe White and 12 second half points from Nikola Vucevic, the Bulls just completely and utterly fell flat in every other aspect of the game. Patrick Williams, who had 12 points in the first half, scored 0. I would assume it goes 3 of 8 for 7 points in the second half of this game. THC, one of the lone bright spots in the second half, scoring 9 points, going 4 of 6. But it just otherwise, this team got completely and utterly outclassed by the Minnesota Timberwolves, which it's not a surprise there. And for a team in the Bulls who so much through the first part of this, the first few games of the season, the story has been the slow starts for the Chicago Bulls. They actually eliminate the slow starts and flip that in place for a slow finish. This Bulls team is the can't get right of professional sports right now. And it's really, I would say that it's surprising, but it's really not. We talked about before how unsustainable the Chicago Bulls play had been. How unsustainable it is when you give up 60 points in the paint, in which this game, the Chicago Bulls gave up 66 points in the paint. 66 points in the paint did the Chicago Bulls give up. And another game in which they give up 20 points off turnovers. The Bulls, just simply put, don't have a sustainability factor because they have no identity. They have no dogs on this team. Not a single dog. Some puppies, but no dogs. And when you look at this team and the way that they played, they led out. This is a 48-minute game of basketball. They had the lead for 38 minutes in this game. 38 minutes. And you got to start asking yourself, for the Bulls, really, is it time to start embracing the tank for the Chicago Bulls? We'll finish this episode talking a little bit about that, but this is another game where Billy Donovan's lack of adjustments is there. It's loud, it's evident, and it's something that continually holds the Bulls back. You saw a team in the Minnesota Timberwolves that took the best shot of the Chicago Bulls and said, all right, what do you got after this? And the Bulls had nothing after that. Nothing. And that's the problem with this Bulls team. The live by the three, die by the three. But not only that, you have nothing else but that. Now, this was one of the better games from the Chicago Bulls of actually scoring in the paint. A team that averages only about 28 points in the paint per game scored 60 points to the Chicago Bulls. But it just wasn't enough. It was not enough. And so you have to start asking yourself, and the Bulls have to start really asking themselves in the front office, who came into this season still preaching competitiveness, still preaching that they had a young core that they believed in and that they wanted to see how many wins this team could go out and get. This does not look like a team that's going to win a lot of basketball games this season. It just does not. In a game and overall, are the Bulls still going to win some games? Yes. Are the Bulls going to beat some bottom feeders in the NBA? Yes. Are they going to have the occasional game or maybe a couple of games where their shooting and their pace outworks the team? Yes. But whether it was the legs of the Chicago Bulls themselves in the fourth quarter of this game, who this was a second of a back-to-back, that may be the case here. Maybe it is just the fact that it is a second of a back-to-back. The Bulls just did not have enough down the stretch of this game to compete with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it's just so much. We just see so much of this consistently from this team that this is the identity of this team until further notice. And that's the thing that I won't say it hurts. It doesn't, right? Because as I came to you guys and said before, I have no expectations coming into the season. I have no win expectations necessarily. I said between 30 and 34 wins. But I just look at this Bulls team and I think that this is a team that it just doesn't it plays a fun brand of offense. But fun is not enough to win games at a high enough level in the NBA. It just isn't. And as much as I would love to say that through the performance of this team and things like that we can start we just got to figure it out. We just got to get over this hump and start winning basketball games. This seems like a team that peaked extremely early and that it showed its hand. And now that the NBA is going to have time to adjust and they know what the Chicago Bulls are bringing, we'll see how it's going to be now. Of course, granted, without Lonzo Ball, without Zach LaVine, without those aspects of things. So maybe that does change in some games for the Chicago Bulls. But it's really disappointing when coaching fails you, effort fails you, and things like that. And when you repeatedly see that night in and night out for the same team, when you keep seeing the same problems from the same players and the just lack of desire that it seems like is here from these Bulls players, it's hard to really expect or think that anything's going to change anytime soon. The same coach, different system, same results, right? That's where we are right now with this team. And so, the Bulls now get a day off before they go back and turn around and play Saturday at home, I believe. And, we'll see if we get Zach LaVine back. There was some initial hope that Zach LaVine could come back in this game. That did not happen. And so maybe you get Zach LaVine back and maybe that helps some things as well. But, this team really just, I don't know what to say, man. This losing streak can go on for a very, very long time. We got the Atlanta Hawks on Saturday. The team that always plays us tough. Then we got the Cleveland Cavaliers, New York Knicks, Cleveland again, and the Houston Rockets all next week. I could realistically see the Bulls and make a case for the Bulls losing all of those next 5 games. We could be talking about a 9 to 10 game losing streak here for the Chicago Bulls, or at least a game where maybe they lose 8 out of 10, something like that. That really could be coming down the pipeline for this team. And I just don't know if I have anything left that or there's anything that I see that drastically changes the outlook of that. And maybe that's the best case, right? We'll talk about it here at the end of the show. We're talking about maybe it's time to really start embracing that tank. And, we'll see what comes along for. But we did also get a rumor today in regards to Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine and the Bulls' plans for those guys as the season goes on. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, we got to get into a message from PrizePicks. All right, everydayers, man. We appreciate you guys tuning in every day, all day. You guys already know what it is there, man. And PrizePicks is the best place to get real money on sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out of your lineup even if your lineup is not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts the members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. With my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You think Steph Curry will get more than four three-pointers next week? Anthony Edwards for more than 27 points? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app again today, LOCKEDONNBA, to get $50 off after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. We also got to get into a message from another one of our sponsors this time, and that is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Again, FanDuel is offering you such a leg up over some other places by being able to get all the latest stats and analysis that you need to make an informed bet on the same page where you place your actual bet. Just get those bets in faster. You want to get your parlay in real quick? FanDuel streamlines that process for you. Again, that's FanDuel.com, and plus you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Bulls fans. We also always want to thank you guys for tuning in and making Locked On Bulls your first listen every single day. Definitely appreciate you guys for that, especially when you're staying up late with me on these post-game shows. But with that said, I want to get into something that we heard later today. It was later in the evening today. And I want to talk about this before we go into the weekend because, of course, no Locked On Bulls over the weekend. But so apparently this one comes from Jamal Collier with ESPN, and this is saying that the Chicago Bulls are planning on shopping Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine leading into the trade deadline. That they do plan on using the hot starts by both these players to potentially get them out of the door is basically what it comes down to. And I know some Bulls fans are going to say, because we've heard this before from Bulls fans, even last year when this was going on why do we want to trade Zach? Zach is so important. Zach is this. And especially with Zach LaVine having the season that he's having, and also to Nikola Vucevic, that point as well, right? But I say that this, right? Unless the Bulls have drastically changed and decide to flip it and they are going to bring in another star, another veteran piece, Zach LaVine is approaching that place, that kind of crossroads in his career where you have to make a decision with him, right? Either you're going to keep on and hold on to him and just hover around the play-in for the rest of his career, or you're going to take advantage of maybe him rebuilding some of his trade value and the start of the season that he's had and try to move him. And now your asking price can be a little bit higher, right? And maybe a team is willing to buy in. Zach LaVine, as I went over a couple of episodes ago on the analytics, he's having his best two-way season of his career. Zach LaVine, as of right now, has been a plus defender when he's on the court for the first time in his NBA career. You pair that with the efficient offense that he has, and maybe the Bulls are hoping that finally a team may be willing to give us something that we want on Zach LaVine. You flip that to Nikola Vucevic as well. Vuce having his best statistical season as far as efficiency and everything else since he's come to the Chicago Bulls. And with, teams needing a big man, the Bulls may again want to strike while the iron's hot. He has 1 year left on his deal after this season. And one thing that this Bulls front office has failed at doing is taking advantage of moving players while their value is high. By the time the Bulls usually try to move players, the value has drastically dwindled down. And so part of me sees this, and while I respect the seasons that Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic are having, I want to be clear here. This is in no way, I have nothing bad to say about Vuce or Zach this season because they both have been playing so much outside of what they have typically given. But I do think as a franchise, and a franchise that's far behind the 8 ball as far as really being competitive in this league, you owe it to yourself to take advantage of your assets while their value is potentially high. Unless you really feel like a leap's coming from Julian Phillips, unless you really feel like within 2 years, Modest Bucilis is going to be that guy, this Bulls team is a long way away from really competing. And it sucks. I get it. Losing games sucks. Having a team that has a projection to win 28, 25 games, it sucks. We've been there. We had to go through it, and it sucked to do through it. Rebuilding, retooling, whatever you want to call it, it's not fun. It's not easy. It's not enjoyable, right? And so there's going to be some trepidation from Bulls fans asking, of doubting if this is the right thing to do. But in fairness, I think that it is, right? I think that it is. Now, I mean, I've been the guy that said leading into the season that I can completely see a world in which Zach LaVine is here at the start of next season. And I can still see that. Just because the Bulls plan on shopping these guys, it doesn't necessarily mean that a team's going to bite, right? And the Bulls, at least when it comes to Zach LaVine, have proven that if they aren't getting equal value, they're not going to make a move. We're not equal. If they're not getting what they seek as far as value in the trade, they're not going to move. Vooch, I think, is a completely different story. I think that if a team is willing to give even a protected first-round pick for Nikola Vucevic, I think the Bulls are going to take that trade and run for the hills. And I think that that's the right decision. You have Vooch who, listen, he's having a great season right now, but there's nothing to guarantee that he's going to keep this up into future seasons. And with him being a player that's well into his mid-30s at this point, I think that, you're far enough away from competing to where you can sit there and say, 34-year-old Nikola Vucevic, much like we said with 35-year-old DeMar DeRozan, we're not going to really be competitive in the time that he realistically has left to be an impact player in this league. So take the fact that he is making one of the biggest impacts in his Bulls tenure, take that, move on, and see what you got. I think that's what the Bulls owe themselves at this point. And so I'm not really surprised to hear that the Chicago Bulls plan on shopping both these guys at the trade deadline. Torrey Craig should also be shopped. Javon Carter should also be shopped, right? Basically, I look at it and say anybody over the age of 25 almost should probably be shopped because it's just that runway, that window is not even really open. It's not even really open. It's a mirage, right? And the Bulls, at best, are competing for a play-in spot. And we've been there for 3 years. And the last hope that we had to extend that is to say that we came into the season with the addition of Josh Giddey, that Kobe White was going to take his game to another level, that maybe some of these young players start showing something and some signs of, hey, they could start turning around what we look at as our draft history being. But unfortunately, those things just don't look like they're going to happen. So I do think that it's smart. It's smart. Now, we don't, again, a trade could not materialize. It could very well not materialize. Teams could, again, be looking at this and saying, they're hot right now, but we don't know if Nikola Vucevic is going to keep this up for a year, even more than last year of his deal. we're not giving you nothing. We got a couple of second-round picks for you. And in a case like that, I don't know if the Bulls bite on that deal. I just don't know, right? So as this season goes on and we keep seeing like Vooch is still playing well, hopefully we get Zach LaVine back healthy. He's still playing well. We'll see where this ends up shaking out for the Chicago Bulls, because we could very well be talking about a realistic place where Zach and Vooch are both gone by the end of February, and they're no longer Chicago Bulls. And that brings us to our last topic in today's episode. Is it time for Bulls fans and the Chicago Bulls themselves, the front office, to embrace the tank? We're going to talk a little bit about that, but first we got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is SKIMS. If you're like most guys, you probably haven't put much thought into upgrading your underwear in a while, but with SKIMS launching their men's line, it's time to rethink what comfort and support actually feel like. SKIMS is known for quality and fit, and now they're bringing that same attention to men's underwear. Imagine boxer briefs that stay in place, briefs that breathe, and fabrics that feel like they're made just for you. SKIMS has a range of options, whether you're looking for classic cotton boxer briefs that won't ride up, or stretch boxer briefs that won't move with you all day long. These aren't your usual store-bought packs. SKIMS have tailored each style to keep its shape and deliver comfort that lasts. These briefs are perfect for anyone who wants their underwear to stay where it belongs without sacrificing comfort. Shop SKIMS Men's at skims.com. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the whole family, SKIMS just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com. All right, Bulls fans. Last topic of the day before we get up out of here, and last topic of the week as well before we take the weekend off, which I surely do need because Bulls have been stressing me out. So the question that I have here, and keep in mind, I have been the guy for the last 3 years that have said tanking doesn't work. But is it time? And I don't have the answer. This is not one of those segments where by the end of this, I'm going to present the answer. I don't have the answer. But is it time to start embracing the tank? We all know this draft class. We all know who's projected to be in this draft class. We all know how deep at this point this draft class is. Of course, the biggest prize in this draft is thought to be Cooper Flag. You still got Ace Bailey in this draft. You got Dylan Harper in this draft. You got a guy that I'm very high on in Hugo Gonzalez in this draft. You got Asa Newell, right? This is what many people are calling the deepest draft in the last 5 years, and maybe the deepest draft overall in the last decade. And so, as the Bulls do have a top 10 protected pick with the San Antonio Spurs, meaning that the Bulls only get to keep their pick if it falls in the top 10, is it time to start embracing the tank? And that's not meaning that the Bulls are going to go out there and purposely play horrible. That does not mean that the Bulls aren't going to go out there and still try to develop Julian and Dalen and hopefully Modest and Kobe and Ayo and Josh Giddey. All these things can happen. But as far as when you pair where the Bulls are playing right now and you pair that with the fact of they're shopping, or they're prepared to start shopping Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine, it may be time for Bulls fans to come to the realization to ignore all expectations and just embrace the fact that this team could very well suck for the rest of the season. That 28.5 win total projection by some of the betting sites, that may be our future. 28 wins may be the Chicago Bulls' future. Now, there's still a lot of season left to be played. There are 73 games left on the schedule, and a lot of things can happen over 73 games. We're not even through the first full month of this season. There's a lot of basketball left to be played. But the fact is that the Bulls are playing it bad. The Bulls are playing basketball bad, right? Kenny says, the East is weak, though. Sixers are horrible. No, Sixers aren't horrible. Like, you got to keep in mind, the Sixers have been without their best player, has not played a single game yet. Has not played a single game of basketball yet. Paul George just came back. Tyrese Maxey is down. The Orlando Magic lost Paolo Banchero. But when you look at it right now, the Bulls aren't catching the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're not catching the Boston Celtics. They're not better than the Indiana Pacers. They're not going to be better than the New York Knicks. They're not going to be better than the Orlando Magic if they can stay healthy. You still got teams that can drastically improve like the Sixers. The Bucks, even though the Bucks have sucked so far this season, they're still another team that they're still going to win more games. So, in saying that this team, and even with that said, what does making the play-in really do for this team? What does making the play-in do for this team? Because this team isn't going to make it out the first round. It's not going to. They're not going to make it out the first round. They may not even make it out the play-in again. Right? And that's the worst. Actually, making the play-in and not making out the play-in that's the worst case scenario for the Chicago Bulls. Go said, great question here. What do we gain by, and it's not even by winning. What do we gain by making it to the play-in yet again? What do we gain by making it to the play-in? Look at it. We made it to the play-in the last couple of years. Has Patrick Williams played any better because of making some play-in games? No. We made the play-in last year. Has Ayo built off what he did last year? No, not yet. He will, though. Right? So if this team continues to hover around the area where they're not doing anything, we're just going to stay literally by missing out potentially on this draft. You could just be saying this team is just going to be locked into the play-in for the next 3 years. And where do we go then? We'll be the same place that we've been the last 3 years. And that's the crossroad that the Bulls have to. Again, like I said at the beginning of this, I don't have the answers. Maybe making the play-in is the best thing, but you got to ask yourself, what do you gain in the long term from that right now? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens, man. We will see. It's going to be a very interesting season for the Chicago Bulls this year, because I think coming into this, it was all about let's see where we stand. And so far, the Bulls don't stand in a great place. But we'll see how this grows and develops for the team over time. Maybe some things start changing. Maybe things start changing for the team and start looking up. We'll see. We'll see. But all right, y'all, man. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, man. Make sure you guys also go and check out the Locked On Bulls newsletter. You can go to LockedOnDaily.com to sign up there for the Locked On Bulls newsletter, and you can get Bulls news in your inbox every single morning to pair along with the daily podcast, man. Thank you guys so much for everything that you continue to do and to support this channel. You can follow me at CEO Haize. You can follow the channel at Locked On Bulls. Love you guys. Go Bulls. See red. And I'll see you lovely and beautiful people Monday. Peace, y'all.